You get the email on a Tuesday morning. Your manager says the move to AI has arrived, and your entire department is being automated. You are one of 30,000 workers Amazon says will be hit by these cuts. New York law now forces companies to name the machine as the job killer. Amazon looked at that box and left it blank. On the official record, the machines had nothing to do with it. They tell you one story to justify your firing, and they tell the lawyers another to avoid an audit. I'm Sarah, and this is the AI layoff laundering machine. Starting around mid-2024, a new kind of layoff announcement started spreading through corporate America. Not the usual market conditions or we need to cut costs. This time, the reason was AI. Klarna's CEO said AI does the work of 700 employees. Block's Jack Dorsey said intelligence tools have changed what it means to build software. Amazon's head of HR called AI transformative for their workforce. Mark Benioff at Salesforce told investors, "I need less heads." IBM touted 94% automation in HR. The message was clear. The robots are here, and we need fewer people. And if you followed the news, you believe it. AI layoffs everywhere. Tens of thousands of workers displaced by technology. Feels inevitable. Feels like the future arriving on schedule. But I'm not asking whether AI can replace workers. Everybody's covering that angle. I'm asking something more specific. When the same company tells three different audiences, investors, workers, and regulators, three different things about the same layoffs, which version is the truth? And which version do they put on a legal form? Because that's what I found. Look at this. 5 companies, 3 audiences each. Every single company told investors one thing, told workers another, and filed a third story with regulators. Bob told investors that intelligence tools changed what it means to build. The layoff memo to employees? We overhired during the pandemic. The SEC 8K filing, the one that carries legal weight, says strategic restructuring. AI isn't mentioned once. Amazon is even more compressed. Same month, February 2026. Beth Galletti, Senior VP of HR, tells a public conference that AI is transformative for their workforce. Andy Jassy sends an internal memo which leaked, telling employees this is about culture, not AI. The New York Warren filing says restructuring. 3 different stories from 3 different offices in the same building, same month. Salesforce is a different flavor. Benioff tells investors he needs less heads. Internally, HR describes it as rebalancing, not layoffs. And they manage the headcount reduction through attrition, natural turnover, which means they never trigger warm filing requirements at all. No filing, no checkbox, no record. Whether that's by design or coincidence, the result is the same. No public accounting. And then there's IBM, the most sophisticated version of this. To investors, they showcase a 94% containment rate on their Ask HR chatbot. To the press, it becomes IBM automated 94% of HR. Very different statement. And internally, they call it workforce rebalancing. And they bundle it with 5 other efficiency measures, so you can't isolate what's AI and what's just normal cost cutting. 5 companies, 5 versions of the same play. The specifics change, the structure doesn't. So I went digging for the paper trail that nobody had put together in one place. And I started with a database most people don't know exists. In March 2025, New York State added a checkbox to its WARN Act filings. The WARN Act, Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act, requires companies to file formal notices before mass layoffs. Starting last March, New York's form has a simple question. Was this layoff related to AI displacement? It's been 1 full year. Look at the numbers. 706 filings, 84,957 workers affected, and the number of companies that checked the AI box is 0. Not Block, not Amazon, not a single company. Under a legal obligation to answer honestly, nobody says AI caused their layoffs. Now, I want to be upfront about the limits of this evidence. This is one state. The checkbox has existed for 1 year. The legal definition of AI-related displacement hasn't been tested in court. Companies may be confused about whether to check it. Their lawyers may have told them not to. I get all of that. But 706 notices and not one check? At some point, the silence itself becomes data. Then I found something from the Federal Reserve. Economists at the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis analyzed 185,000 earnings call transcripts. That's virtually every publicly traded company in the US over 15 years. Before ChatGPT launched, every additional positive sentence about AI on an earnings call correlated with 3.1% more capital expenditure. Companies that talked about AI were actually investing in AI. Money followed words. After ChatGPT, that correlation disappeared. The talk exploded. Companies mentioned AI far more often. But spending on workers? It stayed flat. Sometimes it even went up. The loudest AI cheerleaders were often the ones still writing checks for human salaries.
And the survey data backs this up. HBR, Tom Davenport and Nitin Srinivasan, surveyed 1,006 executives in January 2026. 60% of AI-related workforce reductions were anticipatory, made before AI was actually deployed. Only 2% were based on actual AI implementation results, and 44% of executives admitted they couldn't even measure the impact of generative AI on their business yet.
60% anticipatory, 2% evidence-based. That's a 30-to-1 ratio of guessing to knowing. Companies are cutting jobs because of AI before they've used AI. Now, I have to be honest about something, because the data doesn't all point one direction, and if I only showed you the evidence that fits my thesis, I'd be doing the same thing those CEOs are doing, telling you the story that serves me. AI is doing real work at some companies. IBM built Ask HR, a chatbot that resolves 94% of HR inquiries without human escalation. That's a specific product with a measurable result. I should note, 94% containment on a chatbot means 94% of people who type a question into the chatbot get an answer without talking to a human. It is not 94% of all HR work automated. That's a much narrower claim than most coverage suggests. But it's real. And it's not just IBM. Salesforce's Agentforce handles roughly half of customer interactions. That's not a demo day showing, that's daily production volume. Duolingo, they grew content production 4 to 5 times with AI writing tools, not by replacing linguists, by making them faster. And UPS, this one predates the hype cycle entirely, saves $300 to $400 million a year with route optimization. These are production systems, not press releases, not pilot programs. The labor data is mixed too. Stanford researchers Eric Brynjolfsson's team used AD payroll records to track actual hiring patterns. They found a 16% decline in hiring for 22 to 25-year-olds in jobs most exposed to AI. ADP payroll data, that's actual employment records, not a survey. Something real is happening to entry-level workers in specific fields. That's not theater. And productivity numbers look strong. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported 4.9% annualized growth in Q3 2025. Whether you can attribute that specifically to AI, I'd be careful. A lot of things drive productivity, but I'm not going to pretend the numbers don't exist. So the honest picture looks like this. BCG surveyed 1,200 executives. About 5% of companies have actually scaled AI into their operations. The other 95% are somewhere between pilot and press release. MIT's Mandalab, Chalapali, not Asamoah for the record, found that 95% of enterprise AI pilots deliver zero P&L return. And here's a detail that captures the whole thing. METR, a research group, gave AI coding tools to 16 experienced developers and measured their actual performance on real tasks. Those developers were 19% slower with AI tools, but they reported feeling 20% faster. The gap between what people believe AI is doing and what it's actually doing, that's the gap this whole investigation lives in. If most of these layoffs aren't based on actual AI deployment, then why is everybody doing them? Resume.org surveyed executives. 59% admitted they emphasize AI in layoff announcements because, and this is a direct quote, it sounds strategic. 17% said explicitly. Another 42% said somewhat. More than half of executives are telling you AI is the reason because it sounds better than the real reason. Then block happened. Dorsey announces layoffs, mentions AI, and the stock jumps 24%. Every CEO with a Bloomberg terminal noticed. But what got less coverage is the context. Block released strong earnings the same day. Gross profit up 24% year over year. Raised guidance. Was the stock reacting to the AI narrative or the financial results? I can't tell you. Dorsey couldn't have known either. Stock markets are unpredictable. You can't orchestrate a 24% jump. But the story that you could, that story traveled. Here's what the broader data shows. Goldman Sachs research, Elsie Peng, looked at what actually happens to stocks after layoff announcements. On average, companies that do layoffs underperform the S&P 500 by 2%. Companies that cite restructuring underperform by 7%. Important caveat that Goldman study covers layoffs in general, not AI-specific layoffs. I don't have data isolating AI-framed layoffs from the broader trend, but the pattern is clear. Block is the exception, not the rule. Most companies that cut don't get rewarded. They get punished. That didn't stop the narrative from spreading. Block's story, fire people, mention AI, stock goes up. Created a template through FOMO, not through evidence. A few dramatic cases made every CEO think they could do the same. Most couldn't. And the result? 55% of executives now say they regret AI-attributed layoffs. Half plan to reverse them. Caramines found that a third of companies rehired 25 to 50% of the roles they cut. 90% would do it differently, and 30% ended up financially worse off than before the cuts. Klarna is the full cycle. CEO Sebastian Siemiatkowski told investors AI does the work of 700 people, months later admitted they went too far. Now they're rehiring, but at lower wages. On gig terms, the workers who were cut don't get their old jobs back at their old salary. They get worse versions. And the original headline, AI replaces 700 workers. That never gets corrected. The retraction doesn't travel as far as the claim. This is the part that sticks with me. When a company announces AI layoffs, it makes the front page. When they quietly rehire 6 months later, it's a paragraph on page 12. The narrative ratchet only turns one direction. And the workers caught in the middle, they took severance. They retrained. They moved. Some took gig work at lower pay to keep the lights on. By the time the company admits it went too far, those workers have already absorbed the cost. And the people building AI, they see the same pattern. Sam Altman, February 19th, India AI Summit. The CEO of OpenAI saying out loud that companies are using his technology's reputation to cover layoffs that have nothing to do with his technology. Dio Amode, CEO of Anthropic, described what he calls two exponentials. AI capability advances fast, but economic impact diffuses slowly. Revenue from AGI could take, in his words, 1 year, 2 years, maybe 5. The technology moves at one speed, the economy absorbs it at a completely different speed. And the corporate narrative, it moves at whichever speed gets the best reaction from Wall Street. Even the builders say the hype is ahead of the reality. There's a piece of this that isn't getting enough attention. The disclosure gap. Or more accurately, the fact that nobody is required to connect these stories. In December 2025, the SEC Advisory Committee recommended that companies disclose AI's impact on their workforce and financial filings. Recommended, not required. No enforcement mechanism, no deadline. Senators Warner and Hawley introduced a bill, S3108, to mandate AI displacement reporting. It hasn't moved. The EUA Act adds some requirements in Article 26, but doesn't take effect until August 2026, and the EEOC guidance on AI and employment decisions was rolled back. So the current system works like this. A CEO can tell investors AI is replacing the support team. Tell workers the layoff is about restructuring. File a legal notice that mentions neither AI nor the actual reason. And no one connects the three stories, because no one is required to. That's what makes the WARN Act checkbox so revealing. It's the one place, however limited, however new, where there's a legal obligation to be honest about AI displacement. And after a year, the answer is silence. That silence doesn't stay in filing cabinets. It lands on real people making real decisions with incomplete information. Think about what that means for a 23-year-old graduating into this job market. Stanford's data says hiring in their field is down 16%. Is that because AI actually replaced those roles? Or because the company decided to freeze hiring and call it an AI strategy? That person can't tell. Their career counselor can't tell. The regulator trying to design retraining programs can't tell. And that information gap, the inability to distinguish real displacement from narrative, that's not an abstract policy problem. That's someone's rent, someone's student loan, someone deciding whether to spend 2 years retraining for a field that may or may not actually be affected. When the official story changes depending on who's asking, the people with the least power get the worst information. And right now, nobody is required to fix that. All right. Here's where I stop reporting and tell you what I think. Everything before this was evidence. What follows is my opinion. The story isn't that AI doesn't work. Some of it does. IBM's chatbot is real, Salesforce's automation is real, entry-level workers in certain fields are genuinely having a harder time finding jobs. That displacement is happening and it deserves serious attention. But the bigger story, the one hiding in the gap between earnings calls and legal filings, is that we've built a system where you cannot tell the difference between real AI displacement and corporate narrative. The same company tells investors AI is changing everything, tells workers they overhired, and tells regulators nothing at all.
And when you can't separate the signal from the noise, everyone downstream pays a price. The 23-year-old who can't get hired doesn't know if they should retrain or wait it out. The customer service rep whose whole team got cut doesn't know if their skills are truly obsolete or if they just got caught in a restructuring with better branding. The regulator trying to write policy can't distinguish the 5% of companies genuinely deploying AI from the 60% cutting preemptively. They're all making decisions based on information that is, at best, incomplete. At worst, deliberately shaped for a different audience.
Oxford Economics calculated that AI-attributed layoffs make up 4.5% of total layoffs, 4.5%. But the news coverage makes it feel like 90%. That gap between the real number and the perceived number is not an accident. It exists because it's useful. It makes every CEO look like a technology visionary. It makes every layoff look like the inevitable march of progress. And it makes it extremely hard for anyone, workers, regulators, the public, to know what's actually happening. Here's what would change my mind. If companies start checking that WARN Act box, even a few. If aggregate employment data, not individual company claims, but macroeconomic data from BLS or the Fed, starts showing AI-driven job losses at scale. Right now, Yale's budget lab says there are no major macroeconomic effects. If the SEC moves from recommendation to requirement and the filings still show genuine AI displacement, I take that seriously. I'm not saying AI won't eventually reshape the labor market. Mo Day's diffusion lag argument makes sense to me. Brynjolfsson's entry-level data worries me. The technology is getting better fast. But the question for right now, March 2026, is whether the layoffs being announced today are based on what AI can actually do today. And the evidence says mostly no. Most of this is narrative, not technology, and the cost of that narrative falls on the people least able to absorb it. 706 filings, 84,957 workers, a checkbox that nobody checked. 3 audiences, 3 stories, 1 paper trail. That's what I found. I'm Sarah. Keep asking questions.